Point number 2, practice the precepts. Practice the precepts. At ordination, you take on the 10 precepts, and those 10 precepts cover the whole of your life, all areas of life, and they are a direct expression of going for refuge. They're going for refuge put into practice in terms of ethical conduct. Just, this is all set forth very, very straightforwardly in the 10 pillars of Buddhism. So if you have any doubts here, just look them up. Of course, practicing the precepts is a lifelong struggle. There are always new levels on which one can be practicing them. You never really fully complete the precepts, as it were, until full and perfect enlightenment, presumably. But nonetheless, gross breaches of the precepts should be excluded from now. There shouldn't be anything like that over the next 18 months. I mean, if we just hear that somebody's, had, robbed a bank. No, I can't think of anything less trivial, but more trivial. No, I can't think of anything more obvious. Things like, for instance, meat eating. I think it's pretty conclusive that, all of us can live without eating meat. Eating meat is very obviously breaking the first precept. So I don't think it's really reasonable that, anybody who's seriously considering ordination should be still eating meat. Stealing, fiddling. Well, it's not usually stealing, is it? It's more things to do with, tax fiddles and, not being completely honest and straightforward. Just under-the-counter stuff. Well, that's not good enough. We're trying to be models of morality. We're trying to really take the precepts seriously because they reflect deeply upon our spiritual commitment. So you've got to iron out all these little corners and wrinkles. I remember at Aryaloka, the year we were there, 3 years ago, one person just realised he'd been for 5-10 years just fiddling the New Zealand tax authorities. He just hadn't been declaring what was going on, and it sort of suddenly dawned on him, on the verge of his ordination, what an enormous lie he'd been living. And he wasn't able to do anything about it then, but as soon as he came back from the retreat, he sorted that out. And it cost him quite a lot of money, actually, but he felt this was important enough. So get that straight now. Get that straight now. If you're in debt, for instance, if you're owing money, not to the bank with a scheduled repayment, but, you should have paid somebody back, you told them you were going to give them money at a certain date and you haven't done so, get that sorted out. You can't go for refuge effectively if you've got those sort of ethical, reservations, those ethical issues still alive. Extreme neurotic sex. I don't know whether anybody's into any of these sort of things. I'm not going to go into all the possibilities. It might give you some ideas, but that should be all over. Okay, yes, you've got, any sexual relationship has got elements of craving and attachment and so forth, and you still have to deal with that. But it should be a healthy one. It should be a reasonably healthy relationship that you've got if you have to have one, happen to have one. Drink and drugs. They should be over. They should be over. You shouldn't be indulging them at all. I think if in this 18 months anybody has a serious binge, anybody is using drugs regularly, and by regularly I mean more than once every 4 months or 5 months, and the same with drink. I really think that we've got no reason to drink. What does it do? It clouds the mind. It's so obvious. It works against mindfulness. It works against everything we're trying to develop in the rest of our spiritual lives. And another issue that Bhante has raised is that it's a very, very bad example, because so many people are scarred by drink in the world. I see this in India. Drink there is not a social thing at all. It's a destroyer of life. And listening to people's life stories in Aryaloka retreats recently, I've been struck by how many people's lives have been almost destroyed by drink, whether their own drink or that of parents and people close to them. And I think we should just break with that whole world. Okay, maybe you can have the odd drink every 2 or 3 months or something like that, but I really think we should be having done with that. We've got no reason to perpetuate it and to go against our own efforts. Phew. Yes, if you're regularly indulging, there's just no question of ordination. Just forget it. The speech precepts are, I think, particularly need to be worked on. I think you've got a lot of work to do amongst you here. I'll talk more about this under separate headings, but I think that the speech precepts need to be ratcheted up a few notches. But I'll talk about that a bit later. So, what I want to get at is there has to be a real active and systematic work on the precepts. We're requiring more and more of a high standard of expression of the precepts from those being ordained these days. We expect people to really live by the precepts, not as some sort of forced effort, but as a real expression of their perception, their desire to go for refuge, and their integration behind that going for refuge. An order member ought to be a moral exemplar, both for his own sake and for the sake of the world. There is so much immorality, so much unskillfulness in the world. If we can't offer examples to the world of people who live honestly and truthfully and ethically and skillfully, well, what are we doing? What is going for refuge? What is this order of ours? So I'd really like you to pay very, very great attention to this, individually and collectively. I think you need to think quite a bit about what the performance of the precepts means, for you in your daily lives. And this, I think, means quite a bit of confession. Confession in the sense of being able to acknowledge your breaches of the precepts, being able to openly acknowledge them to your spiritual friends, and to let go of them, not to defend them, not to get into all sort of machismatic sort of posturing about them. Well, it's a new word, but just to open up, let people know what's going on. Yes, it's a struggle. The ethical life is a real struggle, and one has to know oneself very deeply. But one does that by just opening up all the time, just saying, yes, I realise I've just got a very bad habit here. Please help me, my brothers. I can't do it on my own. I need help. Please point it out to me. And also from the outside, gently and helpfully, skillfully, helping each other. Not, kind of, there, you broke a precept, but, my brother, please, I don't take offence, but, do you know what you're doing to yourself? Do you know what you're doing to other people? And just very quietly and gently and sympathetically helping each other to practice the precepts more deeply. You've got to be at the point when you're ordained, really putting the precepts already into effect. Effective going for refuge must mean an effective practice of the precepts, because the precepts are the expression of going for refuge. So if you are effectively going for refuge, the precepts must already be in effect. See what I mean? Enough said. So there has to be this real work, and each of you probably has to identify the areas in your own life where the precepts need to be going deeper, and you need to be working with your spiritual friends to take them deeper. This is for everybody, whether ordained or not. Order members too need to be working on precepts all the time, taking them deeper and deeper and deeper, so that we really are shining examples and just living a healthy, skillful, happy life. Because the ethical life is a happy life. It's not that the ethical life is a terrible burden and drudge and, giving everything up and, oh dear, I can't swear anymore. Life will be such a drag and no fun. Swearing is just the expression of a negative mental state. There's no doubt about it. So just stop it. And, you'll be happier because you won't be perpetuating that negative mental state for yourself. So please really take the precepts seriously, and I think you do need to do a lot of work amongst you. Bhante spoke of the going for refuge, the order chapters as being spiritual workshops which should be of concerning the practice of the precepts and of a confessional nature. They should be spiritual workshops concerning the practice of the precepts and of a confessional nature. That should be, according to him, one of the main things we should be doing in our order chapters. Well, if the Going for Refuge groups are proto-chapters, as I've suggested, well then that should be going on there. We should be in them freely confessing whatever there is, not getting at each other at all, but very sympathetically allowing each other to go deeper and deeper and deeper in our going for refuge by practicing the precepts more and more deeply. Yes, and I think another useful thing here is vow and resolution. I think you should be seeing what areas you need to work on and making definite resolutions, even vows, and making them publicly and working with your spiritual friends. Don't just take a vow, without consulting, because you can get yourself into trouble then. Because if you break a vow, it has a very, very bad effect on you. It has a sort of rebounding effect. It's almost worse than not taking it. Well, it's definitely worse than not taking it. For breaking it without taking it. You destroy, you undermine your own will, your own desire to move forward. But taking vows intelligently and sensibly in consultation with those who know you and for limited periods and so forth is a way of pushing your ethical practice deeper and deeper and deeper. But, I'm just not prepared to ordain people who are not putting the precepts into practice. It just doesn't make sense. It's not what our order is about. It's about effective going for refuge, which will manifest in the precepts.